Good evening and welcome to Real Talk, where every Sunday night we offer insight, education, and resources to in home caregivers and those affected in their world. These are the children, the parents, the extended family, and everyone who loves them. And our goal is to offer real life topics and learning through discussing real issues and offering real solutions. And we're actually going to pre record this one today because this is going to run between Christmas and New Year's, but it's information that's going to be critical to our audience at this time of the year. This is critical for nannies, for newborn care specialists, for housekeepers, anybody who works in domestic staffing, and possibly a lot of other areas also. But tonight I'm really excited to welcome our guest, Rachel Lawrence from Homework Solutions. So good evening, Rachel. It's good to have you.
Hey.
Absolutely. So Rachel is a proud mother of 3 children, including a set of twins. Rock on. Rachel joined the Homework Solutions team in January of 2019 to become their agency partner specialist. And in a minute, I'm going to ask her to tell you a little bit more about that role. She has a solid 15-year foundation in the in-home childcare industry. She is a big proponent of developing and adhering to high industry standards. And I love that. And it's part of why we have Rachel on here a lot, because she's great about making sure you have really accurate information and are holding those professional standards high. We're never going to change things in our industry, and we're never going to change the perception of our industry if we don't all work towards high industry standards. She's also the founder of fairandlegalpay.com, a coalition designed to raise awareness about the need for legal pay in the industry and to empower individuals to educate others about why this is so important. Of course, if you've encountered me anywhere online, you know I harp on this all the time. But I love being able to have somebody who's the hardcore expert in it share with you guys. Rachel is a member of the International Nanny Association, and if I believe, you're on the board of directors now, right?
I am.
And you have been, and you have been in the past also. She regularly attends and often speaks at industry conferences, including those put on by INNTD, Nanny Palooza, the INA, APNA, the U.S. Nanny Association, and is now part of sponsoring our new conference this June. The NCS Enrichments Conference. So we're going to dig into several things around payment. But what we're going to focus on in this presentation is cash apps, because we've been seeing a lot of information out there and a lot of it isn't accurate, bonuses, and fair and legal pay. These are all things that impact our industry all the time, but particularly this time of year, bonuses and how they're paid, how they can be paid. Are they taxed? Are they not? What's it all look like? So we're going to talk about that. But Rachel, I told you in the beginning, what I wanted you to do first off is tell our audience kind of what your role is, and essentially, for lack of a better way of putting it, why they should listen to what you have to say around this.
Well, so I'm the agency partner specialist at Homework Solutions. And what that really means is that I take care of our agency partners, nanny agency partners, their families that they work with, and the nannies and NCSs that they work with, as well as other household staff. I also just, in general, both Jay and I regularly do any kind of education. Whether you're working with an agency or you aren't, you can give us a call. We'll run through anything that you need. Why should you listen to me? Because anyone can learn this, right? If you go back and you look at how I got where I am in the industry, I wasn't always a tax pro. Right? I'm not a CPA. What it is that you learn as you go, right? If you have an open mind and you're willing to learn things, anyone can learn this. So over the course of several years at this point, I've studied this. I've just learned it. I've practiced it every day. And, I work for Homework Solutions. That's the company I will always ask you to personally call me, just because I'm always happy to chat. But if you feel more comfortable with HomePay, or you feel more comfortable with GTM, call them. We're all going to tell you the same quality type of information that we're giving here today, because the law is the law, no matter what payroll company you use. And you want to make sure you're abiding by it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I love that you brought up that point, because we're really fortunate in the nanny industry that Homework Solutions does a phenomenal job, but so do the other companies out there. And they really work hard to make sure that there's quality advice and information and service available. And never once have I encountered from any of them an unwillingness to help. They are always bending over backwards to help and support the industry. So I love that. So, bottom line, you need to listen to Rachel. She knows what she's talking about. So do the other companies. But let's dig into this because we've been seeing a lot of stuff online. I'm seeing it probably 4 or 5 times a week in nanny groups, on social media, in discussions around this. Oh my gosh, don't get paid through your Cash App anymore, whether it's Venmo or Zelle or PayPal, however you're doing it, because the IRS is now tracking it. What's going on, and kind of what's the truth about all this stuff, Rachel?
Sure. Super fun headline. The media has been doing a lot with this, right? Because they want to get our attention. It's clickbait is what it is. Stop using Cash App, stop doing these things because now, Uncle Sam's, he's a watching. Maybe, sort of, is my answer to that. So I'll clarify that. Basically, the reason this is all coming up is because there's proposed legislation. It's not happening. It's just still in proposal form to try to cut down on money laundering. When we talk about money laundering, we're talking about $10,000, $15,000 type payments here. What they are trying to do is cut down on that. And whether or not that will actually play out into becoming law, I don't know. Are they specifically seeking out people in our industry receiving payments? No, that's not the goal, right? Their goal is to fund some of these other programs that they're introducing along with this bill, social service type programs and those sort of things. But I want to be clear, just because their target is someone else and that's why they're doing it, it doesn't mean there's just no way for anyone to know you're being paid illegally. There are plenty of already legal, regular ways that they come across this, right? Let's give an example to that so that it fleshes it out a little bit. If you have 2 working parents, they have children under 5. P.S. The IRS knows this because they're claiming these children on their taxes. And they aren't claiming the dependent care tax credit, which is something anyone should be claiming if they have children in daycare, if they have a nanny, any form of care, they will get money back. So why wouldn't they be claiming it? Why not just audit in the algorithm for anyone who has a double income household, children under 5 who isn't taking this credit, and audit all those people, right? So now they're auditing your boss. Guess what? When they audit your boss, they get to see absolutely anything they want. They can impound money. They can do all kinds of things, right? Once they open an audit. So the take-home message is, while that's a really fun headline, and may or may not in some way in the future, if it becomes law at all, affect our industry, the important message is there are already a million ways to get caught that are totally legal. So if this is what gets your attention and it makes you say, maybe I should do this a different way, great. Do I think that particular law will impact our industry that much? Probably not. But go ahead and take a look. Think about how you're doing things. Think about, does this benefit me? Does this benefit the family I work for? What are my risks? What are their risks? And how could we do this differently? Truth be told, when most people go from illegal pay to legal pay, they don't end up in the hole. They end up with better benefits, right? They're paying to Social Security, Medicare, often to other forms of retirement, often other forms of healthcare. It's a better decision.
Mm-hmm. It's also a whole lot easier to qualify for credit if you need to buy a house or rent an apartment, or buy a car, apply for a credit card, because
cell phones these days require proof of income. Like you said, renting an apartment, anything really requires some proof that you're working, right? Because whoever you are taking on the debt from wants to know you can pay it back.
Right. So while we're on that topic, and it's not on our list of questions, but I'm going to throw it out there because I know in advance what the answer is going to be. Are nannies independent contractors? Because I still see this debated every single week.
Sure. A traditional nanny is not an independent contractor. I don't care what you call her position. It has to do with who's controlling the employment. Does your boss tell you when to come to work? Do they tell you what they want you to do when you get there? Can you sit in Susie Smith, your best friend, as a substitute? Like, these are hallmarks of who's controlling the labor. So that's why nannies are A, hourly employees in addition to this, and B, of course, they're classified as a true employee, not an independent contractor, which gets a 1099. Because all of these hallmarks of what we do, not what we call ourselves, are what defines it. And on, a side note, especially given our potential audience here, that's why NCSs sometimes can be paid differently than a nanny, is because the nature of their work is different, and who's controlling the employment can be different. Depends on each situation, right? But a newborn care specialist who has their own company, who comes in and says, these are the hours I work. I only work 12s. I only work 5 days a week. I send in this person as my sub when I'm unavailable. I have an EIN for my business. All of these things changes the dynamic of who's controlling the work. So, I know we have a little bit of everyone in here. It's the nature of what we do that defines it.
Right. Yeah. And even myself, although I don't take clients very often anymore, and I legitimately own a company and I'm an employee of that company. I mean, we've got all that stuff done right. At the end of the day, when I work as an NCS, I still usually work as an employee because it's just the safer bet for me and the family. And it's less likely to raise any kind of red flag. It's just simpler. It's cleaner. And in the end, the government gets their money one way or another, whether you're an employee or an independent contractor. They still get their money. So
true. It does not save you. And in a lot of ways, depending on how you set things up, mistakenly going down the wrong path costs more money. Mm-hmm. So it's not worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. But there are people, as you said, who do it properly and do it right. But as a rule of thumb, nannies do not qualify in that category. Absolutely. Right. So one of the other things that I'm seeing a lot of discussion around, and really kind of what prompted me wanting to bring you on and talk about this, is it's end of year. It's the holidays. Lots of people celebrate different holidays, but it's traditional that when you work in a service type industry, you oftentimes will receive a bonus. Some people even have bonuses written into their contracts. Not everybody does, but some people do. But a lot of people working in households, whether they're housekeepers, chefs, drivers, nannies, newborn care specialists, whatever your role is, a lot of people are going to be receiving bonuses. I want to talk about those, and I want to talk about a little bit about how it works. So if I'm a nanny and I work in a household and my boss says, hey, I want to give you, a holiday bonus, or I want to give you an end of year bonus. Let's talk first. Can they give me cash? Do they have to write me a check? Do they have to include it with my payroll and it goes on my check? Can they send it to me through a Cash App? How does that part work, Rachel?
Sure. So wages are wages. Again, put whatever name on it you like. Doesn't matter. She put the dishes in every day bonus. I don't care what the scenario is, right? Money earned is money earned. It's taxable wages. There are very few exceptions to this, and they tend to do with what we call fringe benefits, right? Basically, the only exceptions to this are when a company is setting up some sort of bonus like health insurance or retirement or something like that for their employees, or in our case, families are setting them up for their employees. And the reason that is tax advantaged is because they want employers to do this, right? The government thinks it's a good idea. But anything else is taxable wages. I don't care if they give you 10 cents or $1 million. The amount does not matter. If an employer gives employee money, it's taxable. So off the top of my head, it is defined in IRS 525. If anyone wants to look it up and read it. The IRS has lots of information on their website, but basically it's always taxed. How it gets to you is less important, because ultimately what you said a minute ago is true. They care that they're getting their taxes, right? So the fact that it is taxed correctly and those taxes are paid to the government is what matters. Not so much whether they wrote you a paper check or sent a bank transfer or did a cash app. That doesn't matter so much. The fact that it was taxed, the tax man gets their money, and there's some record of it is the other part. So would I pull cash out of the ATM? Not technically wrong, but now there's no sort of trace of it as much, but there should be a pay stub. So again, to answer your other question, does it have to be a separate payment? Can it be rolled in alongside payroll? Really, either of those is okay because again, they're being taxed and there's a record of it. That's what really matters. So while you'll see exemptions on things like if your real family gives you money, as in my mom gives me some money, there are some amounts that are allowed without having to be taken into consideration. That is not true between an employee and an employer.
So there's a difference between a mom giving you money and your mom boss giving you money, in other words.
Indeed.
So what about if they do something different? What if they give you a car?
So again, referring back to, first of all, who is your boss? That's amazing. And second of all, referring back to IRS 525, it goes into that too. It says, that it essentially needs to be assessed at cash value and then taxed accordingly. This is true for anyone, right? If, people go on these game shows and things like income and things that you receive are taxable. And so you'll hear like, oh, so-and-so won the lottery, but they only got half of it because they were taxed. It's just the way it is. Anything that you're getting, particularly from your employer, of real monetary value is taxed.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think that people write down the Subway sandwich that they got on the 23rd of December from their employer because they wanted to do something nice for their employee? No, and that falls under a whole different category of things. But, really, if it's of value, it's considered taxable income, whether it's the green kind or the red kind in your driveway.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. Or the Louis Vuitton that's in my closet, right?
Indeed.
Now, I've never been fortunate enough to get one of those as a gift, but I've seen people get them. So absolutely. So no matter how it's paid, and no matter essentially what form it's in, if it's money, if it's income to you, then it's taxable regardless of the amount when it comes from your employer.
Sure. And here's a quick way to think of it. Why wouldn't it be taxed? Because if it wasn't, why wouldn't every employer pay incredibly low wages all year and then give you a $10,000 bonus at the end of the year to avoid their taxes on it? Or why wouldn't every employer pay you in goods rather than money? The government's smarter than that. They already know that people were thinking ways around things. So, they're going to close that loop.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so the other thing that comes up a lot of times at this time of year, people start thinking about it. I've seen, for some reason, I guess I was surprised. Maybe I shouldn't be, but I've seen a lot of discussion about, hey, I just found out that it's not legal for me to be paid cash. It's like, were you not paying attention through the whole pandemic? It was everywhere, but nevertheless, everybody's not always exposed to information. So if I'm working for an employer, if I'm a nanny, I'm working for an employer, and they've been paying me cash, and we all just discovered that's not legal. Because the reality is, sometimes parents and caregivers don't know that it's not legal. So say they all figured it out, or maybe you as the nanny figured it out, your employer said tough, or they still don't know. How do I get legal? How do I make sure as the nanny or the caregiver that I'm doing the right thing, even if somebody else is not?
Sure. Does it happen? Sure. You have new parents, they hire a novice nanny, or someone who, just like you said, hasn't been exposed to this type of information or never thought to ask and go seek it. Absolutely, it happens. I would strongly encourage everyone listening to join professional organizations, whatever your preference is on those, because it's a great way to stay informed. Join chat groups in our industry, those sort of things, so that you do get these little bits of information, just like we're doing tonight, right? Tanya is a fabulous source of information and knows a lot about finances. So believe me when I tell you it's quality information. But to your point, what now is the question? Well, a lot of it depends on when the what now happens. So if you have been working for this family for ages, it's time to go educate them. You probably have a great relationship with them. And it never hurts to say, I just learned something. Did you know this? What should we do about this? I feel like we should solve this problem. If you just started with them, same sort of conversation. And in some ways, it's easier at the start to say, hey, I noticed that you gave me all of my money when you paid me for the first time last Friday. And I really expected there to be taxes withheld from it and to get a pay stub and those sort of things. So I'm just curious, what's going on with that? How are we resolving this? Those sort of things. Occasionally you'll hear a family that's super duper doing things by the books and just didn't relay that to their employee. They might say, oh, well, we decided to gross up for your FICA taxes, which are Social Security and Medicare. So we didn't pull those out. We just assumed that you were doing your income tax payments on your own. There's nothing illegal about that. It's not ideal because Nanny's going to owe a lot of money at the end of the year on her return. So you might at that point say, I really was hoping you would do my income tax withholdings. Can we chat about that? Plus, they really should be giving you a pay stub regardless. It's also a good signal that there'll be a W-2 at the end of the year. Let's say you bring it up and they say, tough turkey, don't care, not doing it. I would try one more time to explain to them why it's important. Personally, I might consider whether or not I still wanted to continue working for a family in that case, but putting that completely to the side. What can you do without their cooperation? Depends. If this is a former employer and you have this conversation and you don't have a great relationship, there is a form. It's called IRS 4852, I think, off the top of my head. Basically, it's, my employer didn't give me a W-2. And you fill this out and file it. And what happens? They go talk to your employer. And they talk about how you were classified and why you didn't get a W-2. So not a good starting point, right? You want to have this conversation with them first and let them know that you're doing this rather than have the IRS knock on their door. But ultimately, it's the solve because otherwise you're paying the employer taxes if you just claim this as miscellaneous income, which isn't really fair. And under normal circumstances, not pandemic, then you don't qualify for things like unemployment because you're saying this was miscellaneous income I earned with no employer. And so there's no employer paying into the unemployment system. So that's not really a solve. What do I think happens most of the time? I think most of the time the employer goes back and begrudgingly goes back and does the filings for at least the current year. They should go back and do them all, but I'll be honest, most people don't want to amend tax returns, so they take the shortcut, which isn't super legal, but at least they're making progress. So they go back and they amend 18 months worth of filings or whatever it is that they've decided on, or go back to the start of your employment, which is ideal, and amend those, and you amend your tax returns and you clean it up. When you start with your new family, start legal. If they're not asking you to fill out a W-4 form, and in most states a state version of a W-4 form that tells you how you want, or tells them how you want your income taxes withheld, that's your first sign this isn't going the direction you want it to. That should be completed, on your first day, if not before. And that's your first indication that everything's happening in the order it should.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so often nannies are uncomfortable about bringing this stuff up. But if you start off the relationship by discussing things that have the potential to be a problem, it sets the stage for any future issues being easier to talk about, for sure. If somebody says, oh my gosh, I didn't know any of this stuff, or I want more information, can they reach out to Homework Solutions? Can they reach out to the other payroll companies in our industry? and get help, or are there resources online? Where do they get
Sure.
information?
I mean, I would reiterate what you said. I have never known even the other payroll companies that I don't work for to ever tell someone they wouldn't give them information or help. That's what we do. That's why we're in this industry. That's why we sponsor events. That's why we do all of those things, because we're a part of this community. I will speak for my company and myself. Absolutely. My phone number, you can call the main line and ask for me. You can email me, whatever you like. I'm happy to get you whatever you need. We have an article on what to do if you didn't get a W-2, that'll tell you how to fill out that form, line by line. And we have, thousands of other resources. If you're feeling a little sheepish and you don't want to talk to me, that's okay. You want to start by just reading some things. Our website has a knowledge center. There's a search function, so the little magnifying glass. You can type in a keyword and it'll pull up all the articles on that. So if it's midnight and you're up with the baby, or you just feel like you want to do a little research before you reach out, that's fine too. Please, that's why they're there.
Absolutely. And we'll make sure that all the contact information for Homework Solutions is in the feed and in the information around this Real Talk, so that people can reach out and get there. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience, Rachel?
Not particularly, other than really a great time to start afresh. For so many things, it's the first of the year, right? It's true in taxes too. If someone's not willing to go back and fix things in the past, ask them to do it better going forward. Start up with a payroll company in the first part of the year, and January 1st, and go forward from there. And at least do the right thing moving forward. Again, GTM, HomePay, Homework Solutions, we're all part of the Fair and Legal Pay Coalition. We're all part of this industry, and anyone can help you. Personally, I would love to have you come over to Homework Solutions. We definitely have a referred by nanny program and a referred by NCS program, where it helps get people in the door. They get a little discount for their employer. They get a little Amazon gift card as a thank you, those sort of things. Do the right thing moving forward. Make it one of your New Year's resolutions.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Rachel. I really appreciate it. I always appreciate your wisdom and your willingness to help. You and I both have the same mission. We want this industry professionalized, but we want more than the industry. It's the people in it that matter. We want them well taken care of, especially so that if things ever do go wrong, they're covered and they're in a much better spot. But I really appreciate your time and your willingness to help. So thank you so much.
Absolutely, anytime.
We love it. So if you have any questions around this topic, please put them in the feed and tag Rachel Lawrence or tag Newborn Care Solutions, and we'll make sure that you get answers. And if you're wanting to rewatch this segment or catch any of our other Real Talk episodes or access any of our other educational content, you can go to newborncaresolutions.com and click on the Education tab, and all of our Real Talks are also up on YouTube. Just put Newborn Care Solutions Real Talk into the search engine, and they all come up. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great night.